I'm not afraid of anything. Just ask my ego, it'll tell you. Hello, and welcome to Time to Talk, a show where we simply sit down and talk about whatever comes up. In this episode, we are carrying on with our discussion of fear.
I think for many of us that fear was set in very early, that survival mode becomes very instinctual early, and unawareness of anything but that mode. So fear is vulnerability. Admitting that fear is vulnerability at its core. I remember someone asking me one time, I was willing to die for anyone. Who am I willing to live for?
That's a good question.
Because it's harder.
So what is fear?
Depends on my perspective. It depends on my perspective of how I'm looking at it. I see fear now. When I can touch it, I want to walk through it because it's an opportunity to grow. It's
Okay.
no longer, I don't feel a controlling factor, but something now that is transmuted into, I know if I can find that touch of fear, I can turn that into power.
What?
Internal,
Yeah.
not external.
What is fear?
A force.
A thought, a feeling, and it has force. At least that's how it presents itself. Fear is a thought. What is a thought? An electrical impulse. What is an electrical impulse?
A wave.
That has highs and lows. I
Yeah,
don't know.
frequency.
Yeah? A wave? That's what I thought of, a sine wave. So what is fear? Fear is a memory. Even if it's future, fear is based in memory. Something's going to happen. Well, I remember that's bad, so I'm afraid of it. If I've never seen a bee before and it lands on my arm, am I afraid of it?
Depends on if you're afraid of the unknown.
If I have no memories and I come into existence and a bee lands on my arm, am I afraid of it?
No,
Okay.
not until there's an interaction. I'm thinking of a baby,
Yeah.
Doesn't think nothing of the bee, takes off, no fear. Bee lands, stings, oh, and then there's a connection.
Or somebody said recently to me that to a child, mother is God, mother is creator. That's true. Mother is creator. Checks out that, and so if your creator tells you, be afraid, be very afraid, be afraid, run away. I've watched that. I've watched a child be incredibly fearful of bees and yet has never been stung.
Yes.
So fear is a thought gifted to us. Fear can be an experience, a memory. Fear can be a gift.
And it's interesting, fear can actually come from the best of intentions.
Sure. I'm going to
That's
save
an interesting dynamic right there.
I'm going to save my child from the hurt of a bee sting, and now I've implanted because this child has the fear of the bee is so great because in comparison there are no other fears. So I'm going to pay forward this fear to you of bees, but since you don't have anything to measure it with, then that's the biggest fear ever.
How many parents that are afraid of swimming or don't swim just because they don't know how to swim or afraid of it?
Yeah,
How many of their kids learn to swim?
good point. Maybe none, maybe some.
But that's kind of the same dynamic as passing on that fear, and it's an unbeknownst.
Yeah.
It can be totally great question. What is fear?
Yeah. What is fear?
Because it can be a good stimulus too.
Yeah.
They talk about instinctual fear. Somewhere in the big books it talks about our natural instincts run wild. And fear, for me, is a natural instinct, a survival instinct. Don't jump off the cliff. Don't go wrestle with the tiger because it
Mm-hmm.
looks cute, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
then
but you
debilitating panic attacks.
well, you wouldn't know any of those things about tigers or anything or cliffs unless somebody showed you, taught you, or you experienced it yourself. So that's not is that an innate fear?
Climb up a tree and fall out. You have fear of heights, you
Sure.
know. So there's instinctual fear that I think is natural and necessary for our development and growth,
Okay.
but maybe not.
When I think instinctual fear, I mean, I don't have the experience and yet there's a fear. Like the first time I see fire, am I afraid to go stick my hand in it?
Freaking good point.
First time I see a tree, am I afraid to climb it? It takes something, either somebody telling me, don't you climb that tree because you'll fall out and break every bone in your body and you will be hurting and you'll be in so much trouble. So I pay forward a fear. So what is fear?
Is fear man-made?
Are we our own problem?
I think so.
I would agree with that.
I know I've been my own problem my entire life.
I want to tell you, when you ask me what is fear, I want to tell you about my fears. But okay, what is fear? Oh, this is going to go into that sets thing that I watched. The paradox. Fear is a paradox. Am I afraid of fear? Do I have fear because I'm afraid? I don't know yet. What is fear? Fear is an idea. Fear is a memory. Fear is learned. Fear is experienced. Fear is perception. Fear is perception. What is fear? I'm going to Google fear and see what it tells me the definition of fear is.
Because it's different. It's not, what are you afraid of is different than what is fear.
Fear, an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. An unpleasant emotion caused by a belief. What is a belief? What is an emotion? Belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. Be afraid of something, someone or something as likely to be dangerous, painful, or threatening.
Is fear a natural reaction to experience? Because as you said, not afraid of a tree unless someone tells you to be or you fall out of it. Is it a natural reaction to an experience that had an outcome either unwanted, unintended, or unexpected? Is it a natural reaction to experience instead of an entity in itself?
So, is fear a natural reaction to falling out of a tree? So, therefore, I'm afraid of climbing trees. If that's the case, so does anybody that's ever fallen out of a tree climb a tree again? So, if yes is the answer, then fear is not a product. Then fear is not a product of an experience. It's the perception of that experience. And that perception can come from a result. Mom, I fell out of a tree. Oh, you're in so much trouble for climbing a tree. Or, hey, that happens. Come on in here. You got a broken arm? Let's get it fixed.
Gonna climb that tree better next time?
Yeah?
And come be
Yeah?
more aware? Perception. So if that holds true, okay, so let's look at the premise. If fear is not tangible and it is just a perception
Perception of rejection.
of rejection.
Mhm.
Elaborate.
Okay, so fear is a perception of rejection. So there's physical fear, fear of falling out of a tree. I hate trees. I'm never climbing a tree again. So my fear is going to manifest itself in anger. I hate trees, right? So there's a fear. Fear of rejection. If I make myself available to someone, tell them I like them, and they don't feel the same way, I might feel rejected. So I would just never say anything. It's all ego. The only one I haven't gotten to ego yet with is if I fall out of a tree and hurt myself and decide never to climb a tree again. Is that ego?
Is that the instinctual fear that they talk about? Like that self-preservation fear. Like, okay, I did that and I put myself in serious harm's way.
Yeah.
Is that the instinctual fear that they talk about? That the psychologists call it a healthy fear.
Yeah.
It's an instinctual survival mechanism.
Yeah.
It's kind of built in. Like, don't climb that jagged rock cliff again if you tumble down it type thing.
I'm never going to lay my hand on a stovetop again unless I check to see if it's hot. I would agree with that because I've done it.
Yeah, so it kicks in saying, okay, that's not okay for you,
Yeah.
like, and that's what they call healthy fear, that instinctual fear. And anything above and beyond that has been this comes down to nurture nature stuff. Well, and what we brought up with our parents, if your parents if they're afraid to death of snakes or bugs, they're like, holy cow, don't you dare go outside barefoot. There could be a bug getting on you.
Yeah.
And he has good intentions.
Yeah.
But that fear then's boom passed on.
And that's the generational curse, right?
Mm.
That's the demon that jumps from back to back to back to back. The same demon I got from my mom, the same demon I gave to my daughter. It's the same one, the generational curse.
So you're saying, in this context of this conversation, demon and perception are the same thing.
Demon and ego are the same thing. Fear is a perception.
Okay.
My ego is my demon. That's what I'm saying. That's my premise.
I can't wait for us to get more into this ego stuff.
Yeah.
Or yes. Anyhow, I see what you're saying.
So my demon, okay, so if my fear is ego. No, let me back up. If my demon is my ego, if my ego is my demon, right? Then it's going to tell me that I'm not good enough and that I need to be the best or be better or do more, or you'll never amount to anything, or you're worthless. Nobody will like you. You'll be alone for the rest of your life. So I've got to do things. And ego is not just inflation. Ego is deflation. There's positive ego and negative ego. The fear that I take from those interactions, that my ego telling me things, the fear I take is a perception. Well, you'll never amount to anything. Nobody will ever like you. You'll be alone for the rest of your life. Well, that's not true. My perception is different now than it was before. Those things aren't true. I now realize that I have a purpose in this world, in this life, a purpose. And I have friends who care about me, and I care about them genuinely. And I have the ability to love others, and they love me too. My perception has changed. Nothing in the world has changed. My perception has changed. My viewpoint. So fear is a perception in this instance. My demon is my ego.
So then where does the opposite of love is fear?
For me, it is. Other people will have other definitions.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
The opposite. Well, so I'm not going to say the opposite of love is fear. For me, the opposite of fear is love. I'm not sure it goes both ways.
Ooh.
I don't have that experience yet. I have the experience, for me, the opposite of fear is love. And so I'm going to third dimensionalize my concepts, my realizations on these things. My demon is ego. My demon is fear. Fear rides me. To me, my demon, the devil, is fear. And my higher power is love. Unselfish love. That's how I come with my opposites. With these opposites.
So now that you have a choice of your perception, do you feel as afraid of that devil?
I'm learning to let go. I don't believe the fear will ever subside. because I never will get rid of my demons. I just learn to live above them. Learn to let go. This is going to be a cool project.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for listening. Glad you're here. We're all on this journey together, and well, none of us are going to get out alive, at least not in these earthly vessels. So let's make the most of this time. And instead of living in fear and anxiety and doubt and disgust, let's try to learn how to live in love, unselfish love, because honestly, I must unselfishly love to be pure. How do I give? How do I do? How do I love with no expectation of return? That is the journey of this life. It's in the striving that we find the answer. It's in the work where we find the joy. It's in the serving that we find release. How can I pay forward the love that's been given me so that there's room for new love to come flowing in? I can't hold it all for myself. I must give it away. And that's how the fresh love flows in, is by giving it. Be good. Do good things. Give of yourself to others. Any closing words?
No.